Hi, Linda.
Hi. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm just busy letting everyone in at the moment, so.
Okay.
I'm going to put everybody on mute just as they come in, just so that I can concentrate on getting people in. Alice, if my internet goes down, you'll be able to continue with the meeting. All right, my internet is very, very dodgy at the moment for one reason or another. It's not helping having builders outside. I'm so scared of them going through the cable again like they did last week. So
It's always, internet's always work fine until you need them to work, and then it suddenly stops.
yeah.
My experience.
Yeah. Well, they just thought it was an old bit of wire that was going through the garden. Didn't realise it was my internet cable, so they just cut it.
Very helpful.
Yeah. Right. You want to leave it till about 10 past and then we'll start then? And people can join us as and when. I've just sent the link to a couple of others that are struggling to get in, so. What time is it? Tell me when you want to start, Alice, so we can start when you're ready, and people will just join us, and I'll deal with them in the background.
Should we just start now then? It's about 10 past.
There is a chat bar, guys. If you can click on the chat bar, that would be fantastic. If you've got any questions as we go through, if you put them in there, then I'll try and record the questions and obviously bring them in at the end, or you can wait until the end and just ask your questions at the end. Will be fantastic. So I'm going to introduce you to Alice from SpeakUnique. From the point of the swallows, we believe this is a great service, and we definitely need it here in England, Wales and Ireland. We have been trying it with some patients and we've had great feedback. So I'm not going to take anything away from Alice. I'm going to hand over to Alice, and it's your meeting, Alice, and I'll just be in the background if you need me. So I'll go on mute. Thanks, guys.
Fab. Thanks, Chris. I'm going to share my screen now, hopefully. There we go. There we go. So hopefully you can all see my screen. So yeah, thanks very much, Chris. I'm also joined by Linda today, who will be speaking with me. So we just wanted to give you a bit of an overview about SpeakUnique. So I'll go through sort of what it is that we do, why we do it, and then what the different options are and how the voices can be used. And then we'll stop for questions if anyone's got any. So please feel free to drop them in the chat bar as you go through. And then we'll show you how the registration process and the recording works, and then we'll again stop for questions and we can have a bit more of a discussion at the end there. So SpeakUnique we are a voice banking service. So we take a short recording of an individual's voice and then use this to create a synthetic version. And we began as a University of Edinburgh research project a number of years ago. Predominantly for a need for people with conditions like motor neuron disease who would progressively lose the ability to speak and then become reliant upon a communication aid. And typically these come pre-installed with very generic synthetic voices. And there was a big understanding that these didn't reflect people's identities. It wasn't the regional accent that they knew. It wasn't always the age or sometimes even the gender of the individual. And so we looked to develop technology that could capture an individual's voice and then use that to create a synthetic voice that could then be used by that individual when natural speech was no longer possible. So I'll show you this quick video. This is Ewan side by side. So it was Ewan who sort of identified this unmet need, and the research project began because of him. So hopefully this works.
Ewan McDonald. I'm from Edinburgh.
I'm Ewan McDonald. I'm from Edinburgh.
I'm an ex-student at Edinburgh University where I studied law.
I'm an ex-student at Edinburgh University where I studied law.
So in that video, Ewan has motor neuron disease and he uses his eye gaze movement to input text and then has that read aloud in his synthetic voice. So a slightly different use case, but you can still see how that side-by-side comparison of his voice before he lost it and then him speaking with his synthetic voice now. So when we were developing the technology, we realized that there was sort of an unmet need here in providing something that's simple and easy to use, something that doesn't take a very long time, and also something that caters to people whose speech may be already affected by the time they come to learn about this technology. So in Ewan's example there, you could hear his speech was starting to slur, but some of the people we've worked with through the Swallows Trust have also experienced slightly different changes to their voices. So the technology that we've created allows us to repair that damage. So we have something that's available to people who have intact speech to create a synthetic version, people who have impaired speech, we can create a healthy sounding voice. And then also for people who maybe haven't had the chance to bank their voice before their speech changed, we can also create a bespoke voice. So we can take 2 or 3 individuals who have a regional accent or the similar age that the individual wants to sound like and blend those voices together to create a bespoke voice that matches the characteristics that the user wants to sound like. So we'll go through these in a bit more detail, but just to give you an idea that this covers speech from all sorts of people and sort of allows everybody to create a synthetic voice that they think sounds like them. So this is just our website, and encourage you all to have a look at it. So it's got information about, at the top here, our voice bank services, the different options that we have, how the voices can then be used, and again we'll go through that. For people who are healthcare professionals, there's a tab up here which is for healthcare professionals with some resources, a bit more information about how it works, how it can be accessed, and also any healthcare professionals are able to go through the process free of charge to understand how it works before they speak to their patients about it. And then up here on the right is where you would ultimately record your voice, but again we'll go through that in a bit more detail. So I'm going to hand over to Linda. So Linda is our speech and language therapist who works with us. So Linda, you can obviously introduce yourself, but Linda will then be able to go through the options.
Thanks, Alice. Hello, everyone. Yes, Alice has already introduced me. My name's Linda. I'm a speech and language therapist, and I have worked on with SpeakUnique before it was a service. I've been involved since 2012. Back when we were doing a lot of research into how we could make this an accessible service for everyone who needs it. And one of the main things was that we needed to make it accessible for people with many different speech needs. So I'll go through a little bit about the services that we offer that meet these different speech needs. And the first one is what we call Voice Build. So this is for people who have a medical diagnosis, but their speech is not yet affected, so they still have normal sounding speech. And with this service, they can go to the website, they can sign up, go through the recording process, which I'll go into more detail shortly, and it creates a synthetic replica of their voice with a very short recording. It usually is between 150 and 300 sentences that we ask people to record. And within a few hours, there is then a synthetic version of their voice ready for them to listen to and download. So that's Voice Build. And our next service is Voice Repair. So as you'll have heard with Ewan's speech when we played you that little clip, his speech already had some symptoms that were obvious to the listener. His speech had become effortful, it was slow and slurred. This can happen to people with lots of different conditions, whether part of the disease onset is apparent in their speech symptoms, or whether they find out about voice banking after their speech is already affected. So we think it's really important that we offer a voice repair service. So this is for people who have a medical diagnosis and their speech is already affected, in whatever way that may be. So it's a different service from a Voice Build. The process looks roughly the same for the patient or the person recording. They go to our website, they log in, they sign up with their details, and then they go through the recording process. And again, it's between 150 and 300 sentences. We ask for a little bit of information about their speech because that helps us when it comes to the repair. And what we can do is listen to whatever speech symptoms are present in their speech and repair these and fix them so it no longer sounds like their speech is impaired in their synthetic voice. This is one of our it's such an important service to me because so many people come to us when they already have difficulties with their speech, but also because we're the only voice banking company that can offer a voice repair. So there are other voice banking services, but if their speech is impaired, the synthetic voice will just replicate those symptoms, whereas we can repair it and have the voice sound like them before they had these speech difficulties. And our next service is a voice design. So this is for people who don't have any intelligible speech. And as I've said already, we were keen to make this accessible to everybody who needed to use a synthetic voice. Sometimes that can be people who have cerebral palsy and they've never had their own natural voice, but they still want to have a synthetic voice that reflects the regional accent of their family or where they live and where they're from, and sound age appropriate. And it helps them to have a voice that they identify with and they think that how they would sound. So we can do this in a few different ways. Sometimes people have old voice recordings that they can upload. We can use these provided they're a good enough quality. So they need to be just the target speaker, so just the voice that we're trying to build. For example, we can't really work with conversations where people talk over each other because we need to sort of isolate the target speech. So similarly, it's difficult if we have a clip of someone speaking at a party and there's lots of background noise, or even if they're just at home but the news or the radio is on in the background. So it needs to be clean audio, but we don't need a lot. We need roughly 8 minutes to be able to do a voice design. The other thing we can do for a voice design though is use people's family members. So quite often sisters can sound very alike, or brothers can sound very alike, or we can alter if we have a donor voice. So if we're using donor voices, we ask 1 or 2 people to record on behalf of the person who wants the synthetic voice. And once they record, we can blend those voices together so they don't necessarily sound exactly like the donor, so that they can we can design it so it sounds a little bit different. It's still unique to that person, but it has the target accent, it's age appropriate, and they have the final say basically in what they sound like. So we can alter it. It's a much more collaborative approach, which we think is really important for patients as well, to feel like they're involved in how they sound and give them back a little bit of control. So that is the 3 services. And Alice is gonna, okay. And this is how people, one of the ways how people can access the voice. So a lot of people will use our app. So our app is available on Apple and Android devices, and it is free to download from the App Store. And it's a text-to-speech app, which means that people type their text into the box and then they hit the speak button. We have lots of different features to make this as accessible as possible, depending on the person's physical abilities and what they're able to do. So if typing is difficult for them, we have ways for them to build chunks of sentences to try and make it easier for them to get their message across. There's lots of different features. We have what's called a floor hold button, so people can hit it to say, I need time, which means that the listener then knows, okay, they're still typing, give them a little bit longer. There's also certain features of the voice that they can alter, such as the pitch and the speed. We have a category for favourites and most used and recent, so that it saves people repeatedly typing the same message if it's something they say quite often, even if that's what's for tea. They can store it there, and it's a faster way for them to access language and communication. So that's what our app looks like. It's called SpeakUnique, and as I say, it's available on the App Store and the Google Play Store for free. To access it, the person needs to have a voice with us. So once it's downloaded, they would need to enter their email address and their download code, which they receive once their voice is completed, and that then lets them into the app, and it's their voice that's already loaded into it. Okay, so just to cover the key points, and then we'll take questions at this point as well. We create high quality synthetic voices from very short recording times. Our whole website, which I'm going to go into in more detail shortly, has been designed to be as user friendly as possible, and we have tutorial videos and tips to support people to record themselves so that they can do this as independently as possible. We let people listen to their synthetic voice before payment is taken. This is really important to us, that people don't sort of blindly pay for something that they don't know what the quality they're getting is going to be like. So we like people to listen to the voice. At this point, they can offer feedback. If it's a voice build, then they get one version of their voice. If it's a voice repair, they get 5 different versions, and we've had really positive feedback on the 5 different versions, that people can listen for which one sounds most like them, and family members are quite often involved at this point to give feedback. Sometimes family members or more familiar with what the person's voice actually sounds like. You know, the patients will say, I'm not sure that voice sounds like me, and the family members will say, no, that one definitely sounds like you. So again, this is quite collaborative, and we think that's really important to give people back that power to take control of how they sound. And it's the same for voice design. It's much more collaborative, and they get a choice, and we can work with them on how they sound. So our voice banking is for all speech needs, even if their speech is impaired or if they have no speech at all. And as Alice mentioned briefly, we offer a free voice banking trial for all healthcare professionals and charity and people working for charities. And that's so people can go through the process, see how simple it is, and it enables them to better support more patients to go through the process. So I think we're going to open it up for any questions at this point, if anyone has anything.
I've got one question. I've got a question.
Okay.
I've got feedback. Hang on.
Is it a question in the chat, which is the synthetic
Yeah.
voice accessible to all apps and platforms? So in Apple and Android devices, it can only be used through the SpeakUnique app, whereas it can also be used on Windows devices, so in a SAPify format. So then it'll be picked up by any application on the Windows device. So I think it's typical that people with more complex input methods, so like Ewan was using an eye gaze machine, they tend to be for people who are using Windows platforms, so it will just be picked up by whatever's there. But yeah, the app on Apple and Android is the only way you can use it for those devices. So the question about if the app can be used without doing the voice banking, our app is only available to people who go through the voice banking process. So to access the app, you'll need to log in with the email address and the code that's generated with the voice. And then another question about languages. So at the moment, we can only work with English, but we're looking to expand into other languages soon. So we will be including more languages, and hopefully Welsh will be one of them.
Yeah, that's something we're already well, I say we, our speech scientists are, not Alice and I, but our chief technology officer and our speech scientists are already working on different languages in the background. That's definitely a priority for us.
So I don't have any other questions at this point. Otherwise, we can keep going through, and then we can again stop at the end in case there's anything else that comes up.
Alice.
Yeah.
It seems to have sorted itself out now. I will put up a quote from Julie that she found with one of her patients. I'll share that in a moment, when obviously at the end. But also don't forget, if you're going through the offer that's going to be discussed at the end, you must put the Swallows code on. And I know Alice will talk about that later. So I will try and share a quote from Julie. In fact, what I'll do is I'll do it now so you can have a look at it, and then I can come off then. And let me just find it. And hopefully this works. Can you see Julie's quote?
Yes.
So that's the quote from Julie. She is on today, and she's given me permission to say that it's Julie from Blackpool. And if anyone wants to contact her direct or know more about the whole story, she's willing to say it. But that ended an amazing day, both for Julie, myself, and Alice as well, because that was an incredible story to find that a life had been changed and a family's life had been changed. So, you know, if nothing else ever happens with this, that's one family that are very, very happy. And I know Julie was ecstatic at the end of that day. So I just thought I would share that with you.
Thanks for
So
sharing
back over to you, Alice.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll go back. Okay, so Linda, do you want to pick back up for the recording process?
Sure. So now I'm going to take everybody through what the sign up process and the recording process looks like. So very broadly, And very simply, we have tried to make it as simple as possible. As you can see on our website, there is a sign up login button in the top right hand corner. I need to focus on remembering left from right. And it asks you to start with your email address. If you're logging back in, you will have set a password, so you can log in with your email address or password, or if you begin registration, you can enter your email address. We gather a little bit of information, so first name, last name, password. Sometimes it's useful for us to know how people have heard about us, and this may affect funding later, so that could be quite useful for us to know. As you can see, just sort of standard information that we gather.
And I'll just add here that, how did you hear about SpeakUnique? This is where if anyone's taking part in the Swallows programme, they need to put the Swallows in this bit for the month of December to get the voice free of charge. So it's on that second screen, how did you hear about us? And they just need to put in the Swallows.
Okay, so once you've registered, you'll see this screen, which is how we channel people into the appropriate service. So the first box, the symbols represent build, repair, design. This is, I have a medical condition and I want to create a synthetic voice for my communication aid. So this is where patients will go. If you are a healthcare professional, you'll see the third box says, I am a healthcare professional who works with communication aid users. And this is the link to follow if you are an SLT or if you work with patients and you want to create a free personalized synthetic voice so that you can go through the process and understand what it looks like. Okay, so we ask for people's medical diagnosis. That can sometimes tell us what their speech is likely to be like or what's likely to be present in their speech symptoms. So that's useful for us to know. And again, we ask if their speech is not yet affected, that directs them towards voice build. If it's intelligible with effort or intelligible to those who know me well, then that goes to repair. And if it's unintelligible, that takes them through design. So Alice is just flicking through what pages come up depending on what you click. So if you've clicked no intelligible speech, you're taken to voice design. And then there's a brief explanation of what you do, how you do it. It just describes the service. You can nominate voice donors or you can get in touch with us if you want to submit recordings. So you'll see a brief explanation for each service. And then this information is really key for us to know actually what regional accent the person would like their voice to have. That helps us when it comes to selecting if there's any donors or selecting if there's any repair. So it's good for us to know. So this is for design, and if they want to nominate any voice donors, it's also really useful for us to know if they're currently already using a communication aid. Okay, so again, this is asking for information on accent, which is obviously very useful for us to know. Accent influences, this is for very often we see or hear people who have moved around an awful lot. They were born in Australia but went to university in Scotland and have lived in Scotland ever since and have a strange mix of accents. It happens quite often. So this is what we mean by any accent influences, or even parents with a different accent can sometimes affect how people speak. So again, that's really useful for us to know, and it helps us tailor the synthetic voice as much as possible to the target speaker. Okay, so you receive a success message and a confirmation email when your account has been successfully created. And it means the person is now ready to start recording. We recommend recording on a laptop with an external, high quality external microphone. These aren't difficult to pick up. In some cases, speech and language therapy services are happy to loan equipment, or quite a lot of charities are happy to loan equipment. But recordings, the ideal browser is Chrome, and recordings need to be completed on a laptop with an external microphone. So there's a little video here which explains gives step-by-step instructions on how people can go about recording their voice. And it shows a little bit of what the recording screen looks like. I don't think we need to play it, do we? No. So our recording tips are things that we've learned along the way. For example, don't put the dishwasher on and then sit down next to it and start your recording. So try and minimize background noise, get the dog taken out for a walk, get the kids out of the house if you can. Anything that will give minimal background noise and a nice quiet environment. It's also sometimes good to record in, say, a living room, somewhere with lots of soft furnishings, because that can absorb background noise as well. So yeah, just a few general tips on how to get a high quality recording. And a little bit of information about microphone positioning. So it should be level with your jaw, not too low, like not floating under your chin, and not too high, so it's up bumping your nose. Men with beards might need to be careful that the beard doesn't catch on the microphone. That can happen sometimes. But we have checks in place during the recording to make sure that the volume and the quality is acceptable. So we also have quite a range of scripts for people to choose from. There's lots of different genres. The first 44 sentences are linguistically engineered so that they capture a good range of sounds, and they include all the consonant clusters. This is just to help us when it comes to phonetic coverage and building the synthetic voice. However, after the 44 sentences, whatever script the person has chosen kicks in. People can choose according to their interests, or on the next slide, you'll see they can choose according to reading level. So if they just want something very easy, they can pick an easy reading level, or if there's something that they're particularly interested in, they can go for that. So again, we recommend that people sit somewhere comfortable, keep their computer stable, get themselves a glass of water. If people become fatigued easily, or if it's just easier for them and their speech and their voice to record in small chunks, that's totally fine. We find the recording process is very flexible, so people can do 10, 15, 20 sentences in one go. They can save and log out, have a proper rest and come back in a few hours or come back the next day. So it can be done in their own time, whatever suits them, which is one of the perks of it being done as independently as possible. So this is what the recording screen looks like. And as I mentioned, there's save and log out. So if they've done 20 and they think, oh, that's enough for now, they can save and log out and then log back in with their email address and password and continue at a time that suits them. So as you can see, there's a play button. This is actually to play back the sentence that they've already done so that they can maybe hear what they sound like, make sure there was no background noise. It just lets them hear the sentence that they've already recorded. To record the sentence, they hit the record button, they speak the sentence, and then they hit the record button again to stop it and flick on to the next one. If it's easier, they can also control the recording through the keyboard. So they can use the arrows to flick rather than clicking the arrows on the screen. They can use the arrows on the keyboard, and they can also use the R button on the keyboard to record. You can see at the sides, this is a volume tracker. So it tells you the ideal volume range, and if you fall above or below that, you'll see a warning message that lets you know that you need to adjust either the microphone and its positioning. Okay, so once you've reached a certain number of sentences, as you can see, 150 is our minimum. So once you've reached that point, you can save and submit, and submitting it will begin the building of the synthetic voice. So that starts the generation of the voice. Prior to doing 150 sentences, you can save and log out. Some people like to do it all in one go. Some people like to do it in chunks. Some people are happy when they reach 150 sentences, and some people quite enjoy it and they like to go on to 300. It's up to them how much they do. Okay, so this is what samples look like for a voice repair. So I mentioned before, when it's a voice build and there's no speech symptoms, it's just a synthetic replica of that person's voice. When it's a repair and they already have speech difficulties, we generate a few different samples, and they can, when they log in, they can go in and listen to them and decide which one they like the best, which one sounds most like them, which one they're happiest to use. So they can listen. There's a few example sentences. They can listen to them all. There's no rush at this point from our perspective. Quite often people get to this point where the voice is done, it's been generated, and they think, okay, I'm going to play it over a few different days. I'm going to play it to a few different people, get some feedback, get some opinions. And at the point they decide, okay, this is the voice I want, and this is the version that I want, they can either pay now to self-fund, or they can apply for funding. So as I said earlier, it's really important to us that people get to listen to the voice before payment. So we currently have funding partnerships with some charities, and it's always something that we're looking to expand. We'd like to build partnerships with more and more charities so that this is something that's accessible to anyone who needs it. Okay, and so once they've either paid or applied for funding, they will be in the download voice stage. So as you can see, there's Apple, Android, and Windows. And they will receive a download code for Apple and Android. So we don't restrict people in how many devices they can use this on. They can, if they have an iPad and they have a Galaxy phone, they're able to use it on both. And we also made it Windows accessible because quite a few patients with different conditions may use different AAC throughout their disease. So they may start with something that they're able to type on and then need to move to something with different accessibility features. So there we go. Questions again?
Thanks, Linda.
You're welcome.
I was just seeing Chris's comment in the chat about Scotland setting the precedent. So yeah, in Scotland, the Scottish Government passed legislation that mandated the right to speak. So for anybody who has trouble communicating, they are entitled to the support and the equipment required to enable that for them. So this covers all assistive technology. They have apps provided for them, or iPads or devices, and also this their own voice with SpeakUnique. So it's something that we're really keen to push across the rest of the UK, and something we want to take to NHS England and NHS Wales, etc., so that we can sort of show the value of being able to retain your own voice.
I think, Alison, Malcolm, I think that's where me, you, and some of the other organisations can get together afterwards and see how we can convince the commissioners, but also maybe government to look at this. Because if there's a presidency been set, then you know better than me that we can then put some pressure on it.
Absolutely.
So that's why we've been working with our code, and obviously SpeakUnique and Alice and the team allowed us to give free voice until the end of December. So we need as many as we can, and then we hope then we'll get feedback from all the health professionals and patients to then create that campaign to create change. So maybe we can talk further, Malcolm, on that.
Yeah.
So do you want to open the questions up on mic now as well, Alice? Or
Yeah. If anyone has any questions,
there's a couple of questions in. There's a couple of questions been put in. Someone's asked, is there any monthly or yearly fees?
Yeah, so there's no monthly or yearly fee, so it's a one-off cost which covers the voice and the app, and that was, a decision made to make it as accessible and easy. There's no faffing around with trying to get someone to commit to a long-term payment or anything like that. So it is just a one-off cost. And then just to answer the second question, they do get to review so they can listen back to the recording as they go. We don't suggest someone listens back to every sentence because it would just take a long time, but we encourage them to listen back to the recording every now and then to make sure it's fine. And then yes, they can hear their synthetic voice before they are required to pay for it, to be sure that they are happy with it. And if there's anything they're not happy about, then they're very welcome to get in touch and let us know. And if there's something we can do, then we'll definitely work with them to make sure they get to to a voice that they're happy with. And I think that's especially important for the repair or the design service, where there's a bit more sort of nuance in the voice. People's details.
I think the best one that you done was the lady that recorded stories to her grandchildren before she lost her voice, and suddenly had this system, didn't she? And she sent you the recordings, I believe, of those, and you created a voice from those, which I think is incredible. And again, it's another happy family. And like Malcolm said, £175 in the cost of the treatment is pennies to be able to give that voice back. And there's lots of stories coming out, and I'm sure Alice could share a lot more. But within our community of head and neck and laryngectomy, we're now just starting to create these stories for change. So I just wanted to drop that story in as well.
Yeah, so that was quite a few. So I think when Linda was talking about the voice design, that we can use old recordings of people's voices, it often works very well if someone has specifically recorded their voice reading a story, or sometimes people have podcasts somewhere where there's a intentional long period of speech rather than lots of short ones, although that can also work. There's also a question about if people's details are shared with other companies if they sign up to the service. They're not. The only time we would share details is in terms of funding arrangement, and at that point the user is opting in to sort of say that they're happy. Say the two motor neuron disease charities, we liaise with them to make sure that that individual is eligible for funding, but only for that specific purpose, and their details are not shared elsewhere to anyone else because of when they sign up. So if anyone has
any questions from any of the health professionals, the speech and language therapists that are on, any of the health professionals, any feedback for Alice and the team? Anybody want to talk?
Can I just say, I think it's absolutely amazing. Just listening, that first screen that I saw with the gentleman as his speech is, and with the recording. I mean, I had to be careful because I was on screen. I thought, oh God, I'm going to cry. It's so important, and yet I think so much stuff. It's just assumed there isn't anything you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, when you say your voice is who you are, I was thinking, how would I feel without my voice?
I think one of the things we often say is, you know, how often do you call someone on the phone and say, oh, hi, it's me, and then people immediately know who it is, and until you sort of think about it like that, it's very easy to forget what that means. His whole motivation has two young boys, and he said, you know, he wanted his kids to still know the sound of his voice, and so yeah, he's an inspiration to us all. Ewan.
I think you guys are as well. I think it's, you know, to highlight how important this is, you know, in terms of quality of life.
Thank you.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Thanks.
So anybody else got anything to say? There are some more comments and quotes coming in, so I'll let you deal with those, Alice. But yeah, go on, Vanessa.
I actually lost my natural voice at the age of 12. And now I'm facing a future with a possible laryngectomy. I had a partial laryngectomy when I was 14. So I'd be interested in talking to somebody. Obviously, I'd like to get rid of the breathiness of my voice.
Mm-hmm.
But if you repair it to a natural voice, it will probably really freak my children and family out because I would sound so different. So I'm interested in going ahead with this because I'd like to bank it now.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I had my radiation 47 years ago now. So I'm gradually losing my airway and I've always only had the use of one vocal cord.
Right.
But that's getting dodgier and dodgier. So I'd be really interested in doing something now, although it may be, I don't know how many years, maybe 4 or 5 years before I lose my voice box completely.
The thing with the process as well is that you can sign up and do it at any time, and once you've done it, you don't need to necessarily download the voice immediately. We don't put a time limit on it. People can record their voice. The most important thing is that we get a recording of that person's speech, and then we have it. So the options and what we do with it, how we have it sound, that's collaborative. That can come later. But the actual, and we can even build it and work on it and create the synthetic version of it, and you still don't need to download it immediately. It's not something that, you know, has to be done there and then. So I would say sign up, you get started. The most important thing is that we have a recording.
Yeah. Okay, so if I sign up in December, can I record it in January? It's just I'm waiting on a new laptop. I couldn't get things to work on my laptop, so I'm trying to do this on my phone, which I find difficult.
Yeah.
But I'm very interested in getting involved, and I'm fairly new to swallows.
Okay.
So I'm hoping to get more involved with them as well.
Okay.
You can, or just drop us an email if it, you know, if it's your laptop, then I'll put our email address in the chat.
Yeah. Malcolm, your thoughts for laryngectomy and the Laryngectomy Association. What's your thoughts on the product? Is it, do you think it's going to be beneficial?
I had my laryngectomy many years ago. Got a voice prosthesis, but I prefer to use electrolarynx. It works better for me. Now, someone facing a laryngectomy does not know that they will be able to use a valve. It may work, it may not, and he can't use an electrolarynx. Now, recording your voice before a laryngectomy seems to me to be a very good step. I know laryngectomies who've had a valve for many years, but then they got a problem with having a fistula in the wall between the windpipe and the gullet, and they have to choose: do you want to speak or do you want to eat? Most people choose to eat because they can use some other device to make a communication. Having a recording of the voice would improve their own voice would improve that experience massively. I think I don't need any further persuasion on the benefits of this technique and process.
Thanks, that's good to hear. I think there's a lot to be said for being proactive. Oh, sorry.
So is everybody? Steve, over to you. Steve, you're on mute. I might do it.
Does that work?
Okay.
Am I there?
You're there.
Okay, I just wanted to briefly explain who I am and how I got here. I'm just a recently diagnosed tonsil cancer patient, and I was having a bit of work done at Christie's and popped up to Cleveley's after it for a couple of nights. And while I was there, I came across the swallows. It popped up on my Facebook. Obviously, it knows what you're doing and it can see what I'm involved in. And from there, I just ended up thinking my voice is changing constantly at the moment and it could go, I don't know. And I saw this and I thought it's perfect. So that's the only reason I'm here. Perfect for my needs, you know. Whether I'll need it, I don't know, but on insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to let you know who it was and how I got here, really.
Thank you.
Steve, that's for mine, it would be the ultimate is to get every health professionals to say, look, just bank your voice. What have you got to lose? Whether you ever lose it or not, it doesn't matter. In fact, we should all bank our voices. What does it matter? But, you know, I think you're the perfect one.
Yeah,
you're the perfect one, Steve, that needs to be banking.
Yeah, and I discussed it with my oncologist because I'm over here in North Wales at the moment, even though I'm from the Northwest originally. I'm living in North Wales for the last 20 years. So I asked my oncologist, had he heard of this kind of service? And he said no. So I said, I'll pass him literature for the future in case he needs it. Because I think one of your emails mentioned that you're working with the Scottish NHS, but not yet the English, and the Welsh wasn't mentioned as well. So from my perspective, I'm sort of, in a very limited way, I've given him some info. And hopefully I can keep visiting the oncology unit. I'll keep passing it over, you know.
Perfect.
Lovely,
but yeah, it was one of the things getting cancer I hadn't thought about was your voice.
Yeah.
And it is important, isn't it?
Yeah, perfect. Bethany, are you there from Swansea? Can you talk, or are you there? I know she's listening in, but she may not be able to talk. But Bethany is there from Swansea, so we have got someone on from Wales. And I have been talking to the Welsh authorities as well about this service, and it is something they're looking at. So, yeah. Anybody else got anything else to say? So where do we go from here, Alice? What's your ask, and where do you want to go with everybody that's on here?
Yeah, so I think, so I'm just checking, we haven't spoken to Macmillan, Julie. That's a really good suggestion. She's just saying that Macmillan often provide sort of grants and support for people, so it's definitely worth speaking to them. I think for anyone who could benefit from it, then please do sign up and try it out. You know, we'd love to hear what you think, and we'd love to hear any testimonials or sort of experiences of going through it. And for any healthcare professionals, likewise, if you've got any people that you think could benefit, then please do put them through the program. Our ultimate aim is to make this available to people and make people aware of it. I think it really isn't discussed that widely, even within sort of the groups that we came out of, which is sort of motor neuron disease and neurological conditions. You know, it's still not necessarily standard practice, and we just really want that to change. You know, we think it has a lot of value to people, and we want to make that, you know, as big as possible. So as Chris has said, the aim of the sort of partnership that we have is to show the awareness and sort of show demand for this, so we can take that to commissioners and the NHS and whoever needs to be told that this is worth introducing to people. So yeah, I think it would be great if we can get some more case studies and we can sort of start to really demonstrate the value.
But also, I think even if we're not lucky enough to get funding, and I can't see why we won't, but even if we're not, I still think people should have that opportunity to say, right, before you have it, do you want to spend £175 of your own money, which is only a meal out at night, to possibly save that voice? And I would imagine a good 70–80% of them will say, yeah, I'll record my voice. Because you're not going to be charged for it unless you ever need it. So there should be no excuse why Alice's website and Linda's is that busy. It crashes with people trying to record, because it's not costing you anything. And I hope with obviously Malcolm's help and the people that are on here now, we really can drive this message forward for tomorrow's patient somehow. And I know I'll be talking to Malcolm, and we'll obviously keep all you, if you're all happy, in the loop. And obviously Linda and Alice is right behind us. I think they have a great service. I think it's fantastic how they all come together and created this. And well done, everybody.
Thank you. Just to answer, Julie, I was just typing an answer to your question in the chat. It's probably easier if I just say it. So for the healthcare professional trial, if any healthcare professionals want to trial the service, then as Linda showed, when you sign up and log in, there's a sort of button to click, I'm a healthcare professional. So long as you sign up with a professional email address, then you'll be able to go through the process free of charge and then download your synthetic voice. and then be able to demo it. There is, I think this is being recorded, but we also do have a webinar on our website under resources for healthcare professionals, I think, which is a very similar. It just goes through what it is that we do and then how to sign up. So if you have any colleagues who weren't able to join today that want to look back at that, then it is all on our website as well.
Yeah, I had about 10 health professionals said that they couldn't meet because of the clinic times, and would I record it and send them the recording? So that's the reason I've recorded it for those people. But yeah, I would rather you come through us if you want, as long as anyone uses it for the free service. It Swallows Charity. As long as they put that in, it's free. And then the rest of it, you've got Alice's details. Please just go through Alice direct. I'm just here to try and make that buffer. It's the charity really does believe this is needed. So, but you know, it's not for me to do the commercial side. That's up to Alice. But honestly, guys, please use it. You know, it'll be a crying shame. And tell all your colleagues, tell other patients, tell everybody that this service, it's only free to the end of December. So we need as many recorded as possible. Really do. And then we've got some ammunition in 2021 to go to government, but also go to the health authority budget holders and twist their arms. I think the cheapest one I found was about 90. It was about 170, 180 pounds to record it, and then 90 pounds plus VAT every year, or they took your voice off you. That was the one I found. I mean, call me old-fashioned, but is that not blackmail? Come on, it's a great service, this, guys. Please tell everybody. So, has anyone else got any questions? Anybody got any comments? Vanessa.
I just wanted to say thank you, and just to say that I'm in the Essex borders of East London, so I can let people know in Bart's Health.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
And in that area, because I've got relationships with quite a few speech therapists.
Lovely,
So
thank you.
I'll ping out some information.
Thanks, that would be great.
Right.
Thanks a
Right.
lot.
Thanks for your time today. It's been interesting.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Yeah,
The Swallows has also put in for a grant from one of the big companies to try and get some money to fund the service in case it's not as a plan B, which I was going to talk to Malcolm, because then they'll fund us both so that we can pay it a bit like they do in Scotland. But I'm hoping that we'll be able to get the NHS to pay for it. So, but if not, then plan B is I'm going to get funding for me and Malcolm's organisation to be able to offer it that way. So, so yeah, so I think it's been a good session. If anyone's got anything else to say it. Otherwise, thank you for joining us. And Alice, I'll leave you to close the meeting.
Yeah, thanks very much, guys.
Thanks.
So our email address is just info@speakunique.co.uk or Alice or Linda@speakunique.co.uk. So drop us an email if you've got any questions. But otherwise, thanks very much for joining. And I hope that lots of people sign up and let us know if you've got any questions.
Yes, thank you everyone. Thanks for coming along.
Malcolm, we'll talk afterwards. I'll send you an email.
Great.
Steve, good luck with everything. Keep in touch.
I will do. Thank you very much for your time.
No problem. Speak to you all soon.
Thanks very much. Bye, guys.
Okay. Thanks.